the last question that I have here, which wraps up the Q&A, is actually very much related to what you talked about, Matt, which is about identifying the needs, which is actually related to the question that Caleb was asking about, right? We were having the conversation about innovation, but innovation is driven by needs. So a question from Robin is that he's curious on the thoughts on way to help uncover and define those new emerging needs. If anyone has any idea on that.
Let me have a go at that. One of the things I think we make a mistake at as marketers is we believe that all innovation should be customer driven. In other words, find out what the customer wants and give it to them, and you'll be okay. That's only about half of the equation. Certainly, there's a lot of good evidence of great innovations that have come about as a result of finding out what customers want and giving it to them. But there's a lot of companies that I think we all admire and people that we all admire who have succeeded by ignoring customers and realizing that if you have a really great innovation, there will be customers for it, even though they didn't even know they needed this innovation. Some of my favorites are Steve Jobs Steve Jobs always said, you never ask customers what they want because they don't know what's possible. And if you invent really great products, there will be customers for them. Probably the best example from Apple was the iPod Touch. You may remember the iPod Touch was launched about a year after the first iPhone. And what was the iPod Touch? It was an iPod, or it was an iPhone that couldn't phone. You couldn't make a phone call on it. It had everything else, including apps and mail and Wi-Fi and you name it, it had that. And he said, we launched this product without knowing what customers would use it for. And as it turned out, what they used it for was as a games device. They played games on it and then realized that they could buy the games off the App Store. The App Store didn't come about as a result of the iPhone. The App Store came out as a result of the iPod Touch. And all those things that you could do on the iPod Touch, customers discovered that. It wasn't that Apple went out and said, do you want to have a personal game device? Another great example is Cirque du Soleil. Guy Laliberté, who was the marketing VP of Cirque, he always said, you'd never ever do customer research and ask people what they want. He said, because if you ask them what they wanted in a circus, they'd tell you they wanted a couple of elephants and a mangy old lion or two and a clown with a red nose and some acrobats. And when you give them that, that's not what they want. He said, customers do not know what's possible. Our focus is on our performers because if we create an environment for them. So I think that's, a long answer to the question is, don't solely focus on innovation by asking or trying to find out what customers want. Sometimes it's about imagination. It's about having great ideas. It's about being desperate. And I think these are desperate times. And a lot of people will find that by being desperate enough, they'll come up with these solutions.
Yeah, let me pile on to that, because I think there is something very careful or nuanced about what Leland said, and that's stop asking customers stupid questions. They don't know what they want. They don't say what they feel. They don't know how to say. They don't do what they say. And I'm blown away at how many clients that I talk to that show me really bad research. At the same time, understanding what consumers are thinking, feeling, and doing, and using that to triangulate or infer unmet needs based on what they're doing is a smart thing to do, because the consumers are what generate income for your business. And there are some notable examples. I always am reminded that consumers said they would never use an ATM machine. Consumers hated the first season of Seinfeld. The famous Henry Ford quote about consumers wanted a faster horse instead of the automobile. So I think don't misinterpret what Leland is saying is stop talking to customers. I think we should be talking to customers more. I just think we have to stop asking stupid questions and stop expecting them to be our R&D department. The other thing that I would add to this is if you're really looking for innovation, start inward. I mean, the cold, hard reality is we've had it too good for too long, at least in first world countries like the US and Canada, as evidenced by the fact that there's 17 ranch dressings in the grocery store. There's 12 peanut butters. They're all the same. They're all made with peanuts, right? They're all in the same jar. They're all brown, and they're all within $1 of each other. We have to stop making stuff that people don't need. And I think we need to be a lot more critical of what our employers are doing. Steve Jobs' brilliance, listen, he was brilliant for a lot of reasons, but when he came back to Apple, he got rid of half of the stuff that Apple was making. When he talked to Phil Knight at Nike, he says, I love your brand. Just do me a favor. Stop making half the stuff that you guys are making. Because what you do really well, you do really well. And then you make a whole bunch of stuff that's mediocre. And so I think we've gotten lazy because we had a boom economy for well over a decade where we just thought, we can make it. And the plethora of riches made it easy to mask the fact that people didn't need most of what we were selling. So let's get focused on the things that are legitimately solving problems versus coming up with the 18th ranch dressing because this one has peppercorn in it and the other 17 didn't.
Yeah, love that. Delete. This is what these are good for. It helps with the delete process, and most people need to just delete that will also just spawn innovation because there's just less noise, right? That's my favorite thing to do is to just delete. It's the fastest way to growth is usually through deletion. I love that. It's really interesting. Here's another thing that, a lot of people don't think about in the power of marketing is if you're a really good marketer, just do the marketing and let people vote with their wallets. If there's no reason why today you can't sell something, before it's actually built. So sell it and take some sort of payment for it. And if people are buying it, then there's your thing to innovate on, right? So if you have some sort of hunch or whatever, you don't even have to necessarily spend a lot of money doing it, but this is where you can spend more money in marketing versus, the actual R&D of building something first. Like there's just no need to even build it.